Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Now, we already had one Wednesday where we got some new sauce, right? Okay, we got the redone Puppet Nin class, which was insane. Tons of stuff, really dope. And we got more. Okay, for those of you that have been following the channel, you know at one point I did all of the different class mods that they have available, which for those of you that may be new to Naruto 5e and maybe you weren't watching then, the class mods are all of the kind of additional things you can give your characters in the campaign. So things like Sage Beasts, things like Sage Mode, things like the Tensagon, Mangekyou Sharingans, the Rinnegan, any of those really big like power amps that you see in Naruto, that's where you get those as the class mods and where you can add those things into your campaign. There was one in particular though that while it was fun, I think the book definitely needed some improvement on it, and that was the Cursed Seal. Again, not that it was bad, but there were just some things on it that were a little iffy, where like when you would deal with the patron, it was a little weird, it was a little fuzzy. When it came to actually using it and feeling that punishment for using it, it felt like there were just a lot of steps involved, and then at some point you were having to dump your dice, like your actual chakra die and hit die and things like that, where you would permanently lose them to level up, which is a cool concept in theory, but I think overall it just starts to feel really bad, because when you have to perma-nuke things from your character when it's something especially as important as hit dice or chakra dice, it doesn't feel great to level the class up. And with something like Cursed Seal, yes, you want a punishment, but you also don't want the players to feel like they're having to give up their whole character for this new thing. That will probably end up hurting them in the end anyway. So our Lord and Savior King and some really helpful people have come through and made us a brand new Cursed Seal for 2023. Now, before we hop into talking about the class mod, I want to give my usual warnings to players and people that maybe are new to the channel and didn't watch a lot of my other class mod videos. Be very careful with class mods in Naruto 5e. They're very cool, and most campaigns are going to want them. I completely get that. It's the dope thing, right? In Naruto, you remember the Rinnegans, you remember the Cursed Seal, you remember them having the nine-tailed fox inside of Naruto, right? Like, you remember Sage Mode, all of these really cool amped powers, but they are extremely, extremely strong and become game-breaking very, very quickly. So my usual warnings: one, if you're a brand new DM and this is your first Naruto campaign or your first kind of tabletop RPG game in general, I know it feels a little bad, but avoid using these at least for the beginning. Get quite a lot of sessions deep into your campaign before you start introducing something like these. Secondly, be sure you're not just slapping amps onto one player, because maybe you slap a first level Cursed Seal on them and it doesn't feel too bad and everyone's happy, everyone's content, and then you don't give anyone else anything like Sage Beasts, Sage Mode, any kind of Rinnegan Eye, whatever. If you do that, your cursed person's gonna become way stronger, way quicker, okay? And especially with something like Cursed Seal, which we'll talk about later, they can kind of level it up as they go themselves to some extent. So be very careful with these, okay? And my third and final warning is do not, please do not give this to a person who intends for their character to get it. And what I mean by that is if they are building their character around the idea of having a Sage Mode, having a Cursed Seal, don't give them that Cursed Seal for a couple reasons. One, they're gonna be ridiculous, okay? If they are building their character with the sole intent and the sole purpose of getting a Cursed Seal and abusing that power to its maximum, they're gonna be too strong. It's just gonna be ridiculous. Naruto 5e already has huge, big, large numbers, which is part of what makes it fun, but the numbers can just get obscenely stupid. And like they can make their save DCs go up to like high 20s, where it's just impossible for most enemies to even attempt to save it without like a natural 20. So do not give this to the player that is like expecting it, okay? The second main reason for that is you shouldn't expect to get something as special as any of these class mods, especially a Cursed Seal. Okay, if they're trying to force their way into getting a Cursed Seal, honestly, recommendation, find a way to stop them, because it's not their campaign. They're not the main character, okay? They don't just get every single thing they want, which I know can be hard to do sometimes as a DM, but I promise you it's for the betterment of your story. Alright, now sorry, I know that kind of intro and warning section was really long, so getting straight into it, gaining a cursed seal, and a cursed seal, what is it? Alright, for those of you that haven't seen Naruto, maybe you just love the system, gaining a cursed seal is basically something where some form of bad person, bad entity, something of that nature, is going to give you power, in this case, a curse that is going to help you and buff you and give you a lot of strength and abilities, at the cost of them starting to slowly control you more and more, turning you into their puppet, and even if you let it get maxed out, possibly just turning into their vessel for reincarnation, where they just get to revive themselves within you. Now, when it comes to leveling up, as I talked about before, I love this system way better than the prior one. The way this one works is you permanently gain ranks of corruption, which you can see this corruption table here, and it talks about exactly what happens when you gain your corruption and how that kind of works with all that kind of stuff. But the system is very nice. It's very simple. It's very clean. It's not quite as convoluted as the previous leveling system, where you just gain ranks of corruption. And as you can see, at different ranks, it gives you different things, and it even talks about up here, where once you get to specific ranks, I believe it's like 1, 5, 10, and different things, that's when your patron starts to imprint orders onto you, which are basically your person saying, hey, you have to do things that I tell you to do sometimes, and you don't really get an option, which is part of the cons and downside of using a cursed seal. So continuing on into our base class features, as you can see, we have our level table. Please don't give this to anyone below level 8, otherwise your campaign is going to be absurdly ridiculous. But cursed seal, you're going to choose whichever cursed seal they get. This talks about when they gain it, exactly what happens, how it goes. Alright, and we'll talk about the different types later. The important thing here, your cursed chakra. This is going to be a whole separate pool of chakra that you get. It's not actually linked to your regular chakra pool at all. And whenever you spend this, you spend it in the same fashion that you would regular chakra. And you can use this to do things like your cursed seal arts of that nature, or you can use it to cast regular jutsu. And we'll see later on that when you use your cursed chakra to cast regular jutsu, you do get a few benefits from that as well. So you've got your cursed seal, your cursed chakra pool. How do we use it? Well, we have the cursed seal release, which is basically actually activating it. Now, it does talk about, and an important thing for roleplay is that your character will pretty much always feel a little tug, right? You're gonna feel like you should be using this power, even if you know it's not really good for you. You're going to feel this desire to do it, all right? And now when you do it, you can't do it without your character willingly accepting 1 rank of corruption, okay? In that corruption table we saw earlier, without accepting this corruption into your body, you're not actually going to be using the curse. So understand that's something that comes with it. And then within all stages, as it talks about here, each time you exit your cursed seal, regardless of the stage, you reduce current maximum hit die by a little bit, but this time you do get it back, which is nice. Talks about the different bonuses you get. We're not going to go into each one, but when you cast ninjutsu and things like that while you're actually in the chakra mode and how much things cost. And then finally for this section, stage 1, 2, and 3, these are the different levels you get. You're going to unlock these stages the further you get into your corruption and the deeper your seal goes. And as you can see, they just give more and more bonuses. I mean, this is +1 to all saving throws ability checks, +5 to damage reduction, blah, 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 blah. Then you get +2, and then +10 reduction, and then you get +2 still, but then +15 damage reduction, and then a bunch of rerolls, 1s and 2s, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, long story short, it's just obviously you get stronger the deeper into this curse you go. Now, cursed arts, this is going to be short and sweet. All right, these are basically your abilities or kind of pseudo jutsus that you can use when in curse mode. And, you know, if you want to sit here and read through, you can. It talks about how much things cost when it comes to using these different things and kind of how using jutsu and using your cursed arts works. Your save DCs and stuff are also calculated a little differently. You are stronger, so your save DCs and your attack bonuses go higher. Crazy, I know. But just important to note, right? Little more adjustment that you need to make to the character sheet. On this note as well, talking about cursed arts, I highly recommend having 2 character sheets. What I would say you should do is make a copy of the first one, even like a photocopy, or if you play digitally, like you probably should with Naruto 5e, to be honest. If you do, just make a copy of it and then add on your different cursed things onto that new character sheet, because it's way easier to be able to look at your regular character sheet. You go into curse mode, just swap to that cursed character sheet. It's a little bit of extra work in the beginning, but trust me when I tell you it is a lifesaver later on. Now for these next 2 sections, these are both level 2 class or class mod features that you get, and Curse Power is going to be the first one. This, again, basically just giving you the ability to do things a little more efficiently, a little stronger. You can now go into Curse mode whenever you're rolling initiative. It also talks about, you know, for each rank of Corruption, you can gain actually some more temporary Curse chakra. So again, getting deeper into the Curse, getting a little stronger. Talks about some level 4 bonuses you can see here, just doing more damage and such. And then also we have Curse Mutations at level 2, and basically these are going to be, as it talks about, different mutations that you get, dominant and recessive things. Now these mutations are going to be your patron's choice. It's not your call, okay? And this is very important for DMs. This is again leaning into the thing of don't let the person that wants to have this perfect curse seal on them. That's not the intent of a curse seal. A curse seal is more for the benefit of the patron rather than the person. It just happens to have the side effect of boosting their power as well, partially to keep them alive for the patron. So you can decide as a DM what mutations you want to give them. Now, feel free, and I usually encourage for the DM to lean the mutations into something that's useful. Don't just pick something willy-nilly that doesn't do anything, because then it just feels boring and sucks. But don't give them like the best min-maxy options that just makes them absolutely absurd. And for these last two here, Magnified Cursed Art, which you get at level 3, basically just lets you pick a single cursed art, which again are your pseudo jutsus for this class mod, and you just make it your ultimate move. That becomes your thing. It's your signature cursed art that you do often and you maybe even become known for. And then finally at 5th level, which most campaigns probably won't reach a level where 5th level is applicable, but just to put it in there, you do become the Chosen, in which your curse mod reaches its full potential, okay? You are doing so much nonsense, it lasts 10 minutes instead of 1 minute, you regain all your curse chakra on a short rest, you reduce the cost of every single curse art you use depending on the rank of it, and then finally the most important thing is your patron can now officially revive through you, okay? Before this point, if you die with a level 4 or lower curse mod thing, they can't, all right? It just hasn't completed itself. It hasn't fully integrated itself into your body. But once you hit 5th level, that's it. Your patron can now pass away and use you as soon as they see fit. Now, for those of you that know how the curse seal worked prior, you might be thinking to yourself, well, things haven't changed that much. It's maybe some quality of life changes here and there, maybe how it works a little bit just to make it a little smoother and a little easier of a read. But the actual curse seal types are where it gets drastically different, and their changes were so good. Prior, certain curse seals would be really heavily leaned towards certain types of players, in the sense of a curse seal might really lean into strength-based stats and really be big on like, hey, if you use weapons, if you do things like that, you're going to be an absolute menace. But the problem is, as soon as you give that to a ninjutsu specialist, they're just not going to want to use their curse mode, because why would they use a curse mode in which it does something that doesn't benefit them? So really at that point they're just gaining negatives, so they're just not going to touch it and it's not going to matter that much. But they have altered these in such a way to where almost any of them can work for just about any class you want. And it was such a good system change. Now, to avoid this video being super long for you all, because I always like these being kind of a general overview to make it easy, basically, each curse seal gives persons and whoever has them a different mentality on life. And we're going to use this first one as an example and then jump through all of them a little faster. As the DM, really focus on the last line, maybe the last 2 lines of text when it comes to the flavor stuff. Because as it talks about here, those with this curse seal, being the curse seal of heaven, begin to thirst for power above all else. So roleplay wise, their character becomes really power hungry, even if they weren't before. That's what the curse seal does. It starts to mess with your mind. So that's really important as a DM to kind of pick and choose exactly how you want the characters to start reacting to this new power. And then when it comes to the features, this is what I was talking about prior, the changes are so good. So instead of it being some kind of like ability score focused thing, now it's based on what the character might do a lot of. So if they're very dice based, you can give them additional dice equal to the class mod. Maybe they use a lot of chakra, you can give them a bit of a chakra bonus, all right? And then maybe they really like uses of the class mod, all right? And they want a few more, and you can give them limited use or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You get to choose one. So all of these, variants in these curse seal types have these different things, so let's run through them real quick. So Curse Seal of Earth, here we have when you hit a roadblock, your mind immediately shifts towards coming up with ways to progress past this obstacle. a lot of times usually tending to lean towards using the curse seal to get past that obstacle, right? And then some of your additions here that you can give people, you can make their damage dice better, you can make their damage reduction better, or you can give them a little bit of more static damage. Going to the next one, our curse seal of hell. This curse seal solidifies itself on the user in its dormant state as 3 curved arrows rotating around each other. That's more just what the curse looks like. This is one of the ones where you can kind of look at. Yeah, for this one, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot, but I mean, it does talk about how it really uses their rage and anger, so definitely lean into that for your roleplay if you're going with the Curse Seal of Hell. Then at stage 1, you can either give them damage reduction, AC buff, temporary hit point buffs, or maybe a little bit of self-healing, right? All cool options. Next, we have Curse Seal of Sun, and this one, as you can see, it gives you the description of it, and it starts to affect their personality or psyche negatively, making their ambitions a little better, but probably making them lean a little more into the selfish route of things rather than thinking about what might be best for the team. Now, this one, and another subtype, I believe, are so good because they go by class, which I think was such a good decision on these. As you can see, if you're a Genjutsu Specialist, Hunter, and Intelligence Operative, blah, 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 you will get specific things based on that. Amazing system. I love that. It allows it to be very versatile for no matter who you give it to. Going to the Curse Seal of Moon, again, talks about what it looks like. And it kind of talks about what it does to them, increasing their reaction time. In this one, it, physically deteriorates, which is something you can work with. Maybe a bit of a, cancer system going in on there. So definitely something you can look into. Again, this one is class-based, so it's going to do different things based on what the character's class is, just giving them a general buff. Next up, Curse Seal of the Stars. When it comes to this, you can see that after further modifications, they lose some pure intentions, and maybe they get perverted and twisted into something that it no longer really feels is what it used to be. What are you gonna do? It's a curse seal, right? But again, this is a class-based one, which, again, flawless system. Every time I read it, it's such a good system compared to the last one. They made this so much better. But it allows you a few more things, right? Like this one, which I really like the way this one works because it basically gives you corrupted variations of your previous class features, which I really appreciate, right? You get corrupted exploits, corrupted mirages, corrupted life if you're a medical nin. A lot of cool systems in place there. Next up, we have the Curse Seal of War. Again, talking about how it symbolizes death and conflict. You can read through, it changes your mindset, blah, 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 right? As you can see, this was like Kabuto's seal. Going through at stage 1, you can choose to affect their clan and class features, which I think is really cool, especially like if it's someone that's very proud of their clan, right? A character that really leans into the fact that they're a Hyuga and they're very proud of being a main branch Hyuga and that's their thing. You can start to tweak that a little bit and maybe have them lean a little too much into that clan, okay? Next up, Curse Seal of Peace. It's not quite as peaceful as it might sound, but, it was created by Karine, so take that for what you will. Again, stage 1 in this case. This one actually, for the most part, as you can see, select a corrupted art, and it boosts that corrupted art. And then you can do a few allied creature things. So this one can benefit your allies a little more and just help out in general. So, if as a DM, maybe you want a curse seal that isn't as annoying to the rest of the party, which I would highly recommend if maybe your group is a little fresher to Naruto 5e, or especially if they're fresher to tabletop RPGs in general, this might be a little better route to go, a little safer. Next, we have Curse Seal of Order. Again, read through, feel free. It talks about what it does to their head, all that good stuff. With stage 1, they do a few different things. You can get some extra actions where you can do different types of checks. It talks about, doing different seals where you can subjugate people, which this one's kind of dope because you can become a bit of a warden of sorts and you have the ability to really mess with people and control them, which I think is really sick. Next up, Curse Seal of Genesis, which is special. This is one I'm just going to say right now that because it's a bit of a special one, it's very niche, all right, okay, and it talks about, how Jugos especially, which is, the certain clan, if you're not aware, this is what affects them, okay? It can only be for them. It's nobody else, which sucks because it's a cool name for a curse seal, but you can only give this to a Jugo. So I would say I will highly recommend this one if you have a Jugo in your game. If you do, then give them access to this one, because this one leans into their stuff specifically really, really heavily and can make them a very fun, cool character. And then finally, we have Curse Seal of Zhuzhua, which is actually pretty much exactly, wow, I totally just cursed my whole thing there. Usually things like that I would edit out, but I'm going to leave it in because I think it's really funny for this like glitched curse seal mode to have whatever just happened happen. I mean, I know what happened, but whatever. So the curse seal of, again, as I said very beautifully, which is exactly how that is pronounced, by the way. That's canon. I can read that. I know some of you can't. I'm sorry, you're just not as good as me. It's how it goes sometimes. But talking about it, as you can see, this one is very funky. This one I would say is really good if maybe you want a little more freedom and you want the ability to make it a little wilder, a little more goofy. Maybe it really starts to affect the story and has some reality shifting effects. If that's what you want, do this one. Besides that, I would recommend avoiding this one. As you can see, it's even like random things. Upon entering this curse seal, you roll a d3, and then that's when it's going to tell you what you can do, how you can do it, you know, depending on what you roll. So this one is purely intended as like a bit of a, I don't know what else to do, we're going to get wild and wacky. Now, finally finishing up with the curse seal types, I'm just going to scroll through the different corrupted boosts and corrupted arts and things like that. If at any point it's something you want to read, feel free to pause it. There's a ton, and I mean a ton, to go through here. So again, as a DM, if you're not prepared to read through a lot of things, I wouldn't recommend this for you. And while we're here, this is a good time for me to mention and talk about the fact that also don't give this to a player that isn't willing to read themselves, okay? If you give this to a player and we're just doing the game of you're having to like relay all the information that the curse seal has and relay everything that the person might want, it just gets ridiculous, and it gets to be so much work for you that it's just not worth it at that point. Also, here's feats, by the way, if you want to look through those. But make sure you're giving this to a player that understands that they're going to need to read, they're going to need to go through things. That's just how it goes, all right? And they're going to have to learn how this works, because there's a lot to it. And while I do think they did fix certain things and they did do a good job of making a lot of quality of life changes, it's still a curse seal, and it still has a lot of effects that aren't necessarily easy to manage. And finally, at the end, it talks about GM guidance with curse seals, which is pretty much everything that I have told you, okay? And as it talks about here, they do not get to decide which curse seal they receive, but they do get to decide their corrupted boosts, okay? So that's, you know, some of their buffs they do get to choose themselves. And it talks about making sure to have narrative events, making sure the communication between the player and the patron is important, and then the patron and their influence, what they do, how they do it, what type of patron are they? Are they just wanting a super powerful body to go into later? Are they wanting full control over this thing as if it's their puppet, right? These are all things you need to think about and decide prior to actually giving this curse seal out. Because again, it's very powerful, very story altering, and if you're not ready as a DM to add something into the game that is going to have massive story elements and consequences, I would not put this in there quite yet. So anyway, there you have it. That's the new 2023 updated curse seal. I'm so excited we're finally getting some more stuff. There was a long stint there and a break because King was doing some family matters and taking some time off, which honestly I don't blame him. I don't know if you watch these videos, King, but if you do, continue on your break, man. Clearly, when you're on your break, you pump out some seriously good shit, okay? You're doing a good job. And that goes for everybody that worked on this, all right? There's, you know, if you find it in the Discord, he always gives his credit where credit is due to who helped and things like that. But nonetheless, I hope y'all enjoyed. I hope this maybe inspired you to consider putting a curse seal into your game. But nonetheless, hope you enjoyed. Sub if you like the content. If you want, comment down below. I respond to what I can. And I will see you all on the next one. Peace out.